Good morning, everybody. I'm Christina. This is Cassidy. We are out here today at Shaw Nature Reserve. So we are taking our regular virtual tours on the road. We are not at the Missouri Botanical Garden today, but we are at one of the Missouri Botanical Garden sites, again, Shaw Nature Reserve. And today we are going to take you on a tour of the Whitmire Wildflower Garden, which is just one area of the reserve. And the reserve has, I think, over 17 miles.
17 miles of trails.
So what we show you today is just a little taste. And if you like what you see, you should definitely come on out and visit. And we are here today with Andy, who has been doing a similar virtual tour series of his own for Shaw Nature Reserve called the Sights and Sounds Trail Series.
Yep.
So we are gonna follow along with Andy and he will take us through the garden.
Fantastic. Yep. Hi everyone. My name is Andy Klingensmith. I'm on the Education and Interpretation team here at Shaw Nature Reserve, and I have been hosting the Sights and Sounds Trail Series, which is very similar to what Christina and Cassidy have been doing at the main campus. If you're interested in the Sights and Sounds on Facebook, you can just type in Sights and Sounds Trail Series and you can find my group page where I'll always post announcements on when my live hikes go out. So I usually do dusk hikes at SNR, so it's a great time to see the nature reserve in the waning light of the evening. But we're here at the Whitmire Wildflower Garden. Like Christina said, it's about 5 acres of demonstration garden. So at the Nature Reserve, we have over 2,500 acres in total, but here is where we can see a majority of the plant species and the diversity of life without having to walk so far. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start right up here by the Bascom House. So this Bascom House was built in 1879 by Thomas Cruise and his family, and it's been a main staple here at the reserve ever since. So as we walk through the garden, we remember that, you know, the Whitmire Wildflower Garden is a demonstration garden, first dedicated in 1993. And in this garden, we can find different display habitats ranging from woodlands to glades to oak savannas down to wetlands and ponds. So it's a really great way to enjoy and explore the diversity of Shaw Nature Reserve without having to walk so far. And most of the paths that you can see on the ground are nice and concrete, or we have nice rock paths, so it's really nice to bring your friends and family out and enjoy. Alright, so we gotta make sure not to get wet. So a new feature of the Wildflower Garden is this really cool council ring. So this was constructed about 1.5 years ago or so, and it's a great place to come and see wild edibles or native edibles here at the Nature Reserve. So the first native edible that we can talk about is Asimina triloba, or this is the Pawpaw. So here's the Pawpaw fruit. It's not quite ripe yet, but it's very delicious. You can cut this open. It's actually full. Probably has like 5 or 6 really big seeds in it. But this is a very, very sweet fruit. I don't know, Cassidy, have you had this before?
Yeah, it tastes a little like, well, people always say banana or mango.
Yeah.
Or banango is one of the other common names for it besides pawpaw.
Absolutely. So it's really, really sweet fruit. And about 1 year ago, this tree here, for those of us who live in Missouri, we should recognize this because this is now our state fruit tree. So Asimina triloba is the state fruit tree of Missouri. These are really delicious. This is not ripe yet. A great way to find out if it's ripe, you can just take the limb and shake it a little bit. If it falls off, it's ripe, but we'll keep waiting for this. But it's a delicacy of the natural world. So if we don't get to them, the raccoons, the squirrels, the deer, once that hits the ground, it's gone. Yeah, excellent. So Asimina triloba, and then it's nicely surrounded by perennial phlox, Phlox paniculata, really great landscaping plants. has this beautiful pink color for a good 4 or 5 weeks. And we'll see that throughout the garden here. This is a great place to come and sit and relax in the shade. We have some Hookahra. So this is a beautiful flowering. So these are just tiny little white flowers. This is known as Hookahra. Another great ground cover for your landscape. And then this is a pretty easy identifiable leaf. So I don't know if anybody who is watching can ID this. It has a really tall flower, nice and red, that hangs down.
I can ID it.
So if you can ID it online, go ahead and share with us in the chat what you think it is, and then we'll let Cassidy share his guess.
Any guesses? Cassidy, why don't you go ahead and share?
It's Columbine.
Yeah, it's Columbine.
Aguilegia canadensis.
Yeah, excellent.
I didn't read the sign beforehand.
Yeah, awesome. So here in the Wildflower Garden, we also have signs, just like the Missouri Botanical Garden. So it's a great place that I like to come and study. If I'm taking a group out on the backside of the nature reserve, I'll come here first, recognize, ID, and then be able to name the plants. So it's a great place. And this little signal there, just like the Missouri Botanical Garden, means it's a native to Missouri. Great.
We did have a couple people who guessed correctly Columbine.
Excellent. Excellent. And as we leave this council ring, we come to this plant here, which is pretty easy to identify. There are 3 things I look for when IDing plants. The first thing, I look at the stem, and I notice that this stem is, I got a little wet. That's all right. So we notice this stem is square. I don't know, Christina, if you can see that in the camera, how square that stem is.
You can kind of,
nice.
yeah.
So once I recognize the stem is square, I'm like, all right, I might know what this is, but I have to look at the branching. So we have the square stem, and then we move up here to the opposite branching. All right, square stem, opposite branching. And at the very top, the flowers, these are actually on their way out, but these flowers will grow in all these clusters. So once we have those 3 IDs, the square stem, the opposite branching, and the clusters, do you guys know what it is? What family it's in?
It's a mint.
It's a mint, yep. Square stem, opposite branching, clustered flowers, those are mints. So you can take this and crush it in your finger, and all mints are edible. Not all mints taste like mint though. So this is horse mint, and it actually does have a little hints of mint. Cassidy, come over here and give a nice rub that. Yeah, and go and smell your fingers through your mask. What does it smell like?
Yeah.
Yeah, it smells like mint. So square stem, opposite branching, bunch flowers, mint. Onward. So we'll head this direction. So some of our horticulture team is out and about, so they might say hello as we pass by. But as we move into, on the left side of this path, we move into more of our glade and limestone prairie demonstration garden. Very prominent flowers and plants that we'll see out here in the prairie. Massive basil leaves. Look at the size of those basil leaves compared to my hand.
Yeah, those are huge.
Yeah, and so this is a silphium, member of the silphium family. And a great way to determine if it's a silphium, you can just feel the leaf. Christina, feel that leaf, and what does that leaf feel like?
It's really sandpapery.
Super sandpapery. So this is Prairie Duck, and this huge contrast on this Prairie Duck between the leaves of being really rough and then the stems being extremely smooth.
Yeah.
So this is Prairie Duck. It grows into these large, beautiful, really pale yellow flowers. Really easy to see in the prairie. And then we move into our Robecchia Triloba. So brown-eyed Susans, numerous flowers. Brown-eyed Susans different from black-eyed Susans just based on their size and the number of flowers. I always like to measure brown-eyed Susans about the size of my thumb. And we can come over there. Actually, that's Missouri coneflower. But there's many flowers in the horticulture or the flower world you would just call black-eyed Susan, right? So this would be black-eyed Susan. That would be black-eyed Susan. That's the challenge with common names, right, everyone? So that's Robecchia missouriensis, or Missouri coneflower, Robecchia hirta, brown-eyed Susan, and then we move into, so just, yeah, you can see the difference in size up there.
Yeah, let's get a little closer.
Nice. So actually, so we have brown-eyed Susans, or Robecchia Triloba, and this is actually Robecchia subtomentosa. So this is also known as like sweet coneflower, but very, very similar. They're both in the same genus, Robecchia. So beautiful yellow colors, and yellow we'll find a lot at the end of summer. And Cassidy found something cool. Cassidy, is that flower sticky?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
yeah. So this is royal catchfly. I remember it because it's sticky and it catches flies. Royal catchfly. Nice and red. And we'll see a few other red flowers blooming this time of year. Oops. This area is very similar. If you can see, Christina was leaning on this piece of limestone. This is very similar to the rock garden that you would see over there. I think it's by the Climatron, right?
Yeah.
There's a rock garden. So this is kind of our version of like a limestone glade rock garden. Yeah, don't step in anything. So as we move out of the sunshine, we're coming into oak and hickory dominated forest. So in this part of the wildflower garden, this is more of our forest demonstration plot. So we'll see a little more ferns in here. So we have Maidenhair Fern, which are these ferns here. Yeah, really nice. Ferns like nice cooler soils, little cooler areas. And then
Just had a question from Barb. Do you need a reservation to visit Shaw Nature Reserve right now?
So currently we're doing timed tickets. So you can just go online to shawnature.org and just go in there and go ahead and if you're a member of the garden, you simply type in your membership number. I think the main campus was doing this for a while, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same process. And then come out to Shaw Nature Reserve, and once you're in, you can enjoy the Nature Reserve for as long as you want.
And I can tell you that this is a great place to socially distance. I mean, mornings are super popular here, especially on a day like today. And I don't know that we've seen more than 2 other people, and this is probably the most high traffic area.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a place to socially distance and be outside, this is a great place to come.
Absolutely. So here we have Saladago, one of our goldenrods. So this is elm leaf goldenrod, or Saladago Almafolia. You get the species name, Almafolia, right? Foliage like the elm. So the sad part is goldenrods are too often blamed for hay fever in late summer. People see that, they see the golden, they must think that this is all the pollen and that's why we're sneezing. But that's not the case, because goldenrod is pollinated by insects, flying insects, but also some beetles. So they are unfairly cause for concern. But don't worry, these are just really beautiful, and we have 3 or 4 goldenrod species here at the Nature Reserve. But they're coming out right now, and we'll go see if we can find another one. I think tall goldenrod is around here somewhere. But ragweed is that plant that makes us sneeze. If we can find it, I'll show you. And this way kind of just meanders up and around the garden, stays in a little woodland area here. But we're going to head down the hill, kind of make our way towards our lower gardens.
And actually, while we're here too, we can mention, we won't make our way over there today, but there's this nice big lake over here, Pinedum Lake, and it's got this big ring of taxodium, bald cypress, all the way around, and so it's a great place to see those buttressed roots that this tree is known for. And there's a nice little path kind of around the lakeside. So we won't make our way down there today, but since we can kind of see it in the distance, I figured I'd point that out.
Yeah, and so what I know about this is there are different species of taxodium planted there that come from the different states where taxodium is native to. So that's what I learned. Like the original plantings were taken from different locations, from different states, and were planted there. So if you look close enough, you can notice that some of the taxodium look different. It's all based on the habitat they come from. So that's what I've heard. It's really cool to check out. But like Cassidy was saying, those buttress roots and those knees that pop out of the water, we can see a lot of them over there.
Awesome. We just had someone comment, trees with knees.
Trees with knees, yep, that help them breathe. That's that thing. So making our way into the lower woodlands, just like if you're on the trail of the reserve, it gets nice and shady. Plant species change just a little bit, but we still see our goldenrod. We still see our, what's that, Cassidy?
That's the phlox.
That's the phlox. Absolutely, yeah.
Just the phlox, man.
So as we move back into the sun, the plant dynamics change more into our open rocky prairies and glades. Here we have another. So you all learned about this already. Ooh,
oh yeah.
Pollination in action. Yeah, Cassidy, so what do you notice about the stem?
It's a square stem.
What do we notice about the branching?
Opposite branching.
Look at the flowers. What do you notice?
They look kind of bunched.
So what is this?
This is
a mint.
Yeah.
It's a mint, yep. So we sniff it. You gotta crush it.
Yep.
Nice.
Got that minty smell.
This is mountain mint. We saw horse mint back there. And then Cassidy, do the same thing with this plant here. Stem.
Square stem,
branching.
Opposite branching.
Looks like they were in bunches.
Yeah.
So that's Monarda. That's going to be Monarda fistulosa.
Bee balm, right?
Bee balm, yep.
Common name?
Common name, yep. So this one smells more like mint.
Yeah, I can smell that from here.
That's more of like an oregano smell to it. So both of these are edible. You can use that plant in substitute for oregano, for thyme. This plant is really good to use in, in teas. Anything you want turned minty, that's what we're looking for. That square stem, opposite arrangement, bunch flowers, mint. Ooh, and then this is another fun one. We've already seen a cousin, so this is silphium again. So if we know it's silphium, we rub the leaves, what do we expect the leaves to feel like?
Sandpaper.
Sandpaper. So we feel the leaves, very much sandpapery, but this is compass plant.
Okay.
Yep. So compass plant, and you can look at the flowers. They're the same pale yellow, very similar structure. But this plant is known as compass plant because when it's young, because these leaves have such little surface area, they need to orient themselves east and west to get the morning sun and then to get the afternoon sun. So if you orient yourself east and west, you oftentimes point yourself north and south. Take it with a grain of salt. It's kind of like moss on a tree. It's like 75% accurate, but compass plant, especially before the flowers, because these leaves, their whole job is producing energy, right? So they're really orienting themselves in that north and south direction. So compass plant, silphium, cousin to the prairie duck. Oop. All right, there's one more thing I do want to show you, because we do see this a lot. So. So this one is turning brown, and we'll see a better one, but there's an insect that actually decapitates the flower head.
Oh wow.
And we'll show you a better example, because what the insect is doing is effectively cutting off the plant's immune system. So it flops over, cuts it off, lays its egg inside of there, and then once this falls to the ground, that begins to decompose. The egg hatches and then eats away at the decomposing flower head. Because that flower is full of pollen and sugars and nectar and things like that. Perfect place for the young to grow up. So from there, I always ask visitors, if you could be born inside of your favorite food, what is that food?
Pizza.
Pizza, all right.
I think I'd choose a potato.
A potato. Some people go with the really logical sense, like I'm young, I need lots of energy, maybe lots of starch, the carbohydrates. Maybe for me it's like a jelly donut, because in the middle it's really easy to eat away when I'm younger, and as I get older and stronger I can eat away those carbs on the outside. I don't know, what do your visitors say? Ask them what they would, if they want to.
Yeah, if you were born inside your favorite fruit, or food, what would you choose? Tell us in the comments.
Yeah, there you go. Ooh. So spiderwort is a really cool plant that comes out early in the summer when it's cooler, and then again later in the summer. So I think this is called zigzag spiderwort. If you kind of look at the stem, you can see how it zigs and zags. It's a smaller spiderwort, but the blues of that are really bright and really pop.
Yeah.
Nice.
That is a nice bright blue.
It contrasts really nicely with the yellows that we see.
We have some food submissions.
Oh yeah, what are they?
We got steak, chocolate, an apple, a coffee cherry.
Nice.
That's pretty smart. You got your caffeine and your nutrients in there.
There you go. Watch the step. There's a
Oh yeah.
tiger swallowtail. Here it comes back. It wants to be on camera. So it's landing on what's called snow of the mountain. Snow on the mountain. It's a nice euphorbia. So the great thing about using natives in your landscaping is you increase the biodiversity of your landscape. So when we see things like a big variety of insects, we know that our landscape is healthy, and that's what we're ultimately looking for. This whole area to help demonstrate that we can in fact use natives to not only increase biodiversity, but also to reduce the amount of work that we have to do in our landscaping. This is an edible tree. Sorry, this is elderberry. So those are the berries right there.
Oh yeah.
You can make a jam out of these. My wife has actually made smoothies. She'll take these and crush these up, freeze them in ice cube trays, and then put them in a smoothie.
Yeah.
What do they taste like?
An elderberry. They're kind of sweet. They are a little tart though.
It's used in wine, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think a lot of wild fruits are just a little bit tart.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. All right, Cassidy is doing this for educational purposes. We do want to remind our visitors that we do have a no collection policy, as the nature reserve is reserved for the natural world. So it's come here to look and to enjoy, and we do have classes when we start classes again with wild edibles that happen right here in the Wildflower Garden. So really nice. These are really ripe and ready to go. You can actually see the rest of the tree is already ripened up, and the birds have come through here.
Oh wow!
And just taken all of them.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah. And then we're moving into our lower woodland. So in this area we have our Ostrich Fern that acts as the ground cover for our persimmon grove. For those who have tried persimmon, they're a very sweet fruit. We have like 2 or 3 different cultivars of persimmon in here, so they ripen at different times of the year. Native persimmon is going to be ripening right now, but we have some persimmon in here that won't ripen until November. This is a really cool place to come in, and then the bark of the persimmon is very easily identifiable, nice, big, and blocky, and a nice dark color. Really awesome contrast with this bright green of the ostrich fern and the dark color of the persimmon grove.
And this is a really, I love coming out here in the spring when the ostrich fern starts to come up, because you have all this whole area, which is now the full fronds, is all of these little fiddleheads.
Yeah.
That looks like a young volunteer that's expanding the boundaries here.
Yep, so this is kind of the edge of the prairie. You can see out that direction, that's where one of our reconstructed prairies is, and we'll go out there in a little bit. But this is the edge ecosystem. An ecosystem that's very diverse with both prairie and woodland species. We can see a lot of the coneflower. If you can get, Christine, if you can get close. You see that purple coneflower, the echinacea is right in there. And then we still have a lot of these grasses, these prairie grasses, like this one here. It's called gamma grass. With my students, when I work with them, we call it Lego grass, because it pops off like Legos.
Oh wow.
Legos, yeah. So actually, on the inside of each one of these pieces is a little kernel, kind of like corn. So if you were to crush, if you actually break one of those open, there'd be a little, like, it's a seed, but it looks like a corn kernel. Corn kernel, yes. Because remember, corn is nothing more than grass, right? So it looks very, very similar to the grass. And then you can actually, I see we'll find them here in a little bit. We're right behind Christina. So oftentimes we look over grass flowers. So this is the female parts of this grass's flower. What's that? Stamen? I always forget which one it is. Yeah.
There's a botanist watching right now who's screaming at their screen.
Right. Yeah. So it looks like a pipe cleaner, but so the female part of the flower is actually on the bottom of this seed head, and up here when we find more, we'll see like little yellowish, whitish male parts of the flower. But it's always important to stop and enjoy and respect the flowers of grasses, because oftentimes, again, we overlook those.
Yeah.
So we had somebody ask if the ostrich ferns are deer resistant, and I think it's worth pointing out that there are quite a few deer at Shaw Nature Reserve, and there are actually barriers in place specifically to keep them out of the wildflower garden. I don't know about these ferns in particular, but there are quite a few natives in here that I think the deer would really like to get their hooves on.
Yeah, so in 1993, this place was dedicated, opened up, was a fantastic garden, but because these are natives, the deer were really attracted to this area. And so our administration and leadership team decided, what can we do to reduce the deer impact of herbivory in here? So they went through different plans, but ultimately what they came up with was a deer exclusion fence. So if we were to continue walking down the trail here, we'll actually come to the deer exclusion fence, which if you want to continue out in the natural wild side of Shaw Nature Reserve, you just open the gate and you walk through. This is more of our demonstrated cultivated area of the Nature Reserve. So we have two types of areas, I would say. The cultivated, more garden style, and then the wild side of the Nature Reserve. It's kind of like going through those gates at Jurassic Park. So this one is fun. So this is, I think it's Helianthus I believe. It's a sunflower that looks like a sunflower. This is Oxide Sunflower, or also known as false sunflower. So the easiest way I can tell, it's kind of hard without comparing, but the petals are a much darker golden yellow than most sunflowers. And then on the back, if you can see the bracts, oh, look at those little aphids.
Oh yeah.
So all these green bracts right here, sunflowers are very pointed bracts, where the false sunflower has more rounded green bracts. Can we see that in the video? Yeah, so if we see a sunflower, we'll compare. So false sunflower has these rounded bracts, much more golden color. And then we'll find a actual sunflower and show you the bracts in the comparison. But a nice, beautiful golden color with those really red aphids. Stunning.
Yeah.
So here is what causes your ragweed and causes your allergies in late summer. So this is tall ragweed. We have two, or at least two species of ragweed I'm familiar with. But these are wind pollinated. I don't think the pollen is ready now, but these are the plants that you can like flick and you see plumes of pollen coming off. So this is what causes your seasonal allergies in the winter, not goldenrod. Nice. Yep. So Cassidy's trying to shake pollen so we all sneeze.
I think the masks help with allergies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. All right.
Is this a hazelnut of some sort?
I don't know, where's the sign?
Just those fruits look very...
Yeah.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
That's okay. I don't know.
We'll have to ask.
We'll have to ask. Does anybody know? Look at that leaf shape. It's alternately arranged. There are the fruits on the back of it. There's a little stink bug hanging out on this. So yeah, if you know what tree this is, please share with us. It's a native. It's here in our native rock, our native garden. This isn't.
Just wonder if it's
not Oh, what?
There's the,
It's not a witch hazel, is it? Is this
I
too
don't-
big to be witch
I
hazel?
don't think it's a witch hazel. It does. The leaves look somewhat similar.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a hazelnut.
Okay.
But we digress, don't we? This is my problem. There's the big nut
Yeah,
inside.
there you go. That does look good.
Not quite ripe yet, but all right, shall we?
Yeah, so that's what Shaw Nature Reserve is all about. Coming out here and exploring and questioning and learning about the natural world. Only like a few feet away from benches and bathrooms and everything like that. So it's really nice to come out here in the wildflower garden.
Christine suggested it could be Turkish filbert, and then we had a couple other people confirm that they do think it's hazelnut.
So as we make our way further down to the lower woodlands, we'll come to our Gazebo Pond, which is just a great area to demonstrate the native plants that you can use around a body of water. So we see, we come up here and get a good view of the Gazebo Pond. We still have a lot of our ostrich ferns. You can see on the other side we have thalia, which have the nice purple flowers. And then we have a little bit of willow growing around the edges. We have cattails and lots of rush and carrick species that are in here. But it's a really nice place. We want to go over to the gazebo,
Yeah.
and we can make our way around.
Yeah,
back up.
I'm wondering if those big white flowers, if that's a rose mallow or something.
Ooh, yep, I'm gonna guess. Just by location, habitat type. So before we go, here's another
Oh yeah.
red flower, but this is not catchfly. This is Lobelia Cardinalis. So this is cardinal flower. Looks very similar to catchfly, but if we were to touch it, it's not as sticky, and it acts more like a lobelia, where a lot of the flower petals are like drooping, where that catchfly was open, right? And that red really pops.
It really does.
And that's one that a lot of people use in rain gardens as well. So that's a really popular rain garden plant. So pretty fitting for it to be next to the water like this.
Then we move into our sensitive ferns. That's what these guys are, so be nice to them. They are sensitive. And then we have the gazebo, which is a fantastic place to come and sit and relax and enjoy the sights and sounds of the pond there. You can grab some turtle pictures right around the corner. I think there are turtles
Oh yeah.
sitting on that log.
Oh yeah. There are indeed. Little baby one.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure about the chairs, but I know that the gazebo itself was made from salvaged cedar that came out of Shaw Nature Reserve. So cedar is seen as a native invasive. You know, it grows aggressively. So when we remove it, instead of just chopping it up for sawdust or bark or mulch, we try to be as sustainable as possible and reuse a lot of our resources. So all these cedars came out of Shaw Nature Reserve. And I think our in-house carpenter made this himself. Very talented
Wow.
people that work at the reserve here. What was this, Cassidy?
It's a hibiscus,
Yep.
but the native hibiscus are often called rose mallow.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
and this is swamp milkweed here.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have some of this at home, and I also have aphids
I do too.
on mine.
Yep.
But this is a much later blooming milkweed, and I know in my home garden right now it's covered in monarch butterflies.
Oh, is it? That's so nice. Mine's covered in all these aphids.
Yeah,
Right? Right.
a little bit of both.
Yep, so here's more of that. Oh, look, there's a caterpillar.
Oh yeah.
Little monarch caterpillar right there. You can get
Oh,
that
yeah.
camera in there. There it is. So monarch caterpillars and swallowtail caterpillars look very similar.
Oh wow, look, they're
wow,
everywhere.
they
Oh,
are
yeah.
everywhere. Yep. So the easy way to distinguish monarch caterpillar from a swallowtail caterpillar is simply the little horns they have. So monarchs have these nice black horns on both ends, where swallowtail caterpillars don't have the horns. But yeah, they're everywhere. Let's
Yeah.
see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's one over here, 7.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Perfect.
they-
Yep.
Very
Host plant,
cool.
right? Then we see we have more of our prairie dock.
Oh yeah, you can see those big sandpapery leaves.
Cardinal flower just loves this aquatic area. Like you said, a lot of people use it in their rain gardens and their aquatic gardens.
And if I could make a plug,
You sure can.
starting today, I believe this morning, the Shaw Nature Reserve Fall Wildflower Sale
Oh yeah.
has
Yeah.
the order form has gone live today. You'll see that on the Shaw Nature Reserve Facebook page.
Yep.
So if you're interested in adding some cardinal flower or a good chunk of the other native plants that we've featured so far on this tour, you can start putting in your orders today, and there's on-site pickup, similar to how the wildflower sale happened in spring. I know I purchased some cardinal flower from the spring sale, and it's already in full bloom in my own home garden. So that's a little plug
Yeah.
for the fall wildflower sale.
Thanks for that. Yep. Absolutely. Yep, that starts today, and like Kat said, all the flowers that we saw here, most of them will be available for purchase, either grown by our own horticulture team or with partners that we work with. So
It's a great excuse to come out here to pick them up and then walk around.
there you go. So we'll head this way and head to another pond area. We're kind of at the lower end of the Whitmire Wildflower Garden. This is still a part of the garden, but right down this trail here, you'll come to Brush Creek, and you can see Brush Creek Trail, and that will actually lead you out past the deer exclusion fence into the more wild part of Shaw Nature Reserve. Yeah. Here we have it's like our frog pond boardwalk in the spring. There are many, many breeding frogs and species of frogs in here. This place is extremely loud in the
Oh, wow.
evening, but it's a great place to come, sit on these benches and just enjoy the sounds of the spring. But right now, this duckweed, which is what's covering the surface of this, is just kind of taking over. And what I find really interesting is just like on the land, where you can see like deer and raccoon paths, you can actually see the paths that some aquatic organisms have traveled. So we have turtles in here, we have fish in here, we have frogs in here. It's a great diversity of aquatic species. And then we have our thalia, very beautiful big plants. And then we have just a lot of I know these as lizard tail. I think they're just in the smartweed family. Now, there's just so much of Shaw Nature Reserve to show, and I'm glad that Cassidy and Christina were able to come out today and check it out. And this is only, again, 5 acres of the Wildflower Garden. But a great place to come and get your feet wet, as they say, and then begin to explore out here around Shaw Nature Reserve.
And I think, you know, worth noting as well for people that haven't been out here, the reserve actually butts up to the Merrimack River, so it really is a chance to see true Missouri native habitats, like in all forms. So there's a great overlook and bluffs, and going down to the river and seeing that change that we talked about even here, the upland forest versus bottomland forest.
Yeah, we're here. So Shaw Nature Reserve is kind of situated on what we call like the Ozark edge, or the Ozark border of the Ozark Plateaus. So we're like 6 miles north of us is the Missouri River, and that's kind of where the glaciers from the north have carved out a lot of the landscape, and they stopped at the Missouri River. And then the Ozark Plateau, where we are now, was created by a lot of upheaval of rock and erosion. So we are at that intersection of prairies, rivers, forest land, and we can see all of that right here at Shaw Nature Reserve. So thinking we have, I think, 5 main ecosystem types. So we have our forests, we have our glades, prairies, wetlands, and rivers. So all of that can be seen right here at Shaw Nature Reserve, which is fantastic. So much diversity of life is out and about here. So here's another example of that decapitating weevil, and you actually can see how it's decapitated that flower. And that gooiness is from a different organism. But oftentimes we'll see how the insects can actually hack into the plant life and the plant's own defense mechanisms for its personal survival.
Wow.
All right, do we want to go into the prairie for a little bit?
Yeah, let's do it. It's a great day.
Okay.
We'll go out in the prairie and since we're here.
Sure, since we're here, yeah. All right, here's Christina, you can see, so we can see more of the, so here's the, oh, here we go. So here's that gamut grass again, and you can see, especially on this one here.
Oh yeah.
So there's the female parts of the flower, right? And as we move up the flower, you can actually see the male pollen parts hanging down and dangling there. So these are the flowers of this grass. Really beautiful.
Yeah.
These are pretty temporary, and they're pretty, very beautiful now with all those hairs on them. But give it a few days, and they'll be wilted, once they've done their job. And then, oh, it's just beautiful. Oh, that's so cool.
And since we're here too, I thought it was worth mentioning there's all these bluebird boxes throughout Shaw Nature Reserve, and so I don't know that anybody's home right now.
I can find out.
I don't want to disturb them. But this is, in terms of bird watching, a great place to come and do that, and then some built habitat by the staff to help the bluebirds out. So. Yep.
The Missouri bluebird is, or the eastern bluebird is our state bird, right? And so I think in like the 80s, I think they were affected by DDT just as well as like the bald eagle, but they're lesser known. And so a lot of these boxes were built by individual researchers trying to help support the population. And in the early 2000s, we had a group of volunteers that came through and made a map and kind of connected all of these bluebird boxes into one research project. And so we have over 80 bluebird boxes on site. And every year, those boxes fledge about 300 to 350 bluebirds.
Wow.
This is one of our beautiful reconstructed prairies. So if we can imagine when Shaw Nature Reserve was purchased, this land was used for farm fields. And in partnership with the Missouri Botanical Garden as well as the Missouri Department of Conservation, a lot of time and energy was spent reconstructing these prairies to include high diversity of plant and animal species found in here. So I think there's somewhere close to over 100 plant species found here, which just invites hundreds and hundreds of insect species, which bring in birds, which bring in lizards, so it's a great connection between creating this fantastic habitat and also providing the beauty and enjoyment of our visitors, for our visitors. All along the side here we see this is Partridge Pea. So this is in the pea family, so it will have a little legume. What's really interesting, these are they're also called sensitive partridge peas, because I can't do it, but when these, so you can see the fronds open up in the daytime, but at night they'll actually close all the way up, protecting pretty much their solar panels from destruction. So they'll open now and then they'll close, and even the flowers will close up in the nighttime. So here's some more kind of pollinator in action. Oh, there it goes. Miss Bumblebee. You can see as we travel here, the paths are nice and wide and nice and mowed. Great way to explore the prairie. And it's worth noting, the beauty of this prairie is managed by using prescribed fires. So if we can imagine, I don't know if you can show with the camera, but if we look from that woodland over there, so where the edge of the woods are, across this whole prairie to the edge of the woods over there, to manage this area, we use prescribed fire. So this whole thing will be lit on fire in late December through February, sometime in there. Our restoration horticulture teams will come out here and use this tool, this restoration tool that we have, to benefit this natural community. And so in the wintertime, this will look like black and barren landscapes because it's just recently burned. We have to remember, as ugly as that looks for a short time, this is the end result, and that's why we do that.
And if people are interested in seeing what that looks like, I've actually come out here and covered a couple of prescribed fires at Shaw Nature Reserve. So on the garden's YouTube page, there's a playlist for Shaw Nature Reserve, and there's some video. The prairie fire was awesome. I had a drone out over it, and so you can just see once they've sort of lit the backfires, when they light the main fire, how quickly it just sweeps through. And then prescribed fire is also used in the woodland areas as well, but it's a totally different kind of fire. The fuels are different, and so it is interesting. You can see videos on both of those uses of prescribed fires in the different habitats.
Yeah, but then you can meet Mike Saxon, who is our restoration ecologist supervisor. So he runs all this stuff, which is just fascinating at his job.
And he collects. I mean, we were talking about managing prairies and to keep up the health of these ecosystems. I mean, he collects hundreds of pounds of seeds along with other staff and volunteers. Christina used to be part of that effort.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun if you are looking for a way to help the environment and spend some time outside and get your exercise in all at once. There's a few different activities that you do, but if you want to come out here and volunteer with the ecological restoration team, you can just find that on our volunteering page on the garden's website. Yep. It's very rewarding.
Yep. When volunteers can come back, hopefully it's soon, We miss all of our volunteers, for sure. So it really, restoration really shows the power that humans have to manipulate and change landscapes, both for the good and for the bad, right? Here at the Nature Reserve, we do it for the benefit of the ecosystem. But we have to remember, being on the Ozark Plateau and the border, this area is mainly dominated by oak and hickories. So we can see it here. So if we were to let this area go, the oaks and the hickories would eventually take over this landscape, because this is a natural landscape. But us managing it, we manage particularly for this prairie ecosystem. So it's really fascinating of how we can kind of hold back the succession of the forest to create this vast and diverse ecosystem. Cool. Do you have any questions? Anybody have any questions they want to ask or anything about Shaw Nature Reserve? I'd be happy to take some questions if they have any.
I do think it's worth mentioning for those who aren't familiar with the nature reserve. You know, we mentioned off the top that it's a site that's part of the Missouri Botanical Garden, but if you're wondering where is it, it's in Gray Summit, which is in Franklin County, a short drive down Interstate 44 west if you're coming from the city of St. Louis. I think, Christina, it maybe took us 35 minutes or so to get here from the main garden campus this morning. So a nice, easy, relatively short drive from the city and the suburbs to get out into this landscape.
Absolutely, yep. It's funny for the right off the highway too. You know, you get off the highway and we're less than a minute off the exit. So it's so close, yet it's such a hidden gem for so many people coming out from St. Louis. And there's so much you can do here. You can hike here. There are a lot of runners out here. We have a lot of walking groups. We have reading groups that come out here. You can bring your bike and you can bike the roads out here. You can bird, wildflowers. There's so much that Shaw Nature Reserve offers. So if you haven't come out, you have some time, come out and enjoy, you know, the changing landscapes out here at Nature Reserve. So I will say that moving into September, our hours will change. We will open our gates at 8 a.m. and our gates will close at 7 p.m. starting in September. Right now we're 8 to 8, but as the sun wanes, we'll move from 8 to 7, and then even later in the fall, we'll change from 8 to 6. I think Cassidy found something very exciting.
Just a little more milkweed.
More milkweed, yeah.
I don't know if that's Asclepias tuberosa.
Yep. Yep.
I'm not used to seeing it this late in the season.
Yeah. It's been very wet. Very wet and kind of actually cool.
And it's actually got a pod on it.
Oh yeah, look at that.
And so, again, not fully ripe to what it would provide, but these little fibers dry out. Oh, we're just finding all kinds of stuff in here.
Yeah. So I know this. So this really cool plant, the purple. I know it as obedient plants. I'm not quite sure what the Latin name is, not Latin, but the botanical name. But obedient plant because you can simply take the flower head and you can move it, and it will stay.
Oh wow!
So I can take the flower head and I can move it around, and it will stay there. So I think it's a survival mechanism. Something brushes alongside of it, instead of snapping off, it just moves. Yeah, so obedient plant. It obediently stays where you place it.
We have one question about visiting. Someone is just wondering whether there are restrooms open.
Yes, there are restrooms open at the Bascom House, where we park. There are also restrooms out at the Trail House, which is about halfway around the outer loop road. So there are multiple bathroom sites to use out here. I will say that all of our picnic tables have been taken up or locked down. So if you're gonna come out here for a picnic, make sure you bring your own seating and you can enjoy a picnic out here in the Nature Reserve. Yeah. It's also important to remember, as much as we love our pets, Shaw Nature Reserve is reserved for the natural world, so we do ask people to leave your pets at home. Unless you have a service animal. And those are the most
Oh, little bunny.
Oh yeah.
Little bunny.
I got so excited I scared it off.
So we move out here to our pavilions. We kind of come through our last of our purples and blues. So we see our phlox, the pale purple coneflower is on its way out. And then this is Scutellaria. This is a mint as well. I'm blanking on the common name. Downy skullcap. That's what this plant is. So really, even in the summertime, late summer too, especially the pops of these blues and purples. In contrast, like behind you, Christina, with these yellow flowers.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have yellows and purples in your landscape, I highly recommend it because they are fantastic to contrast against each other. Nice. Here's one last example you can see of the decapitating weevil. That's what they do.
Oh yeah.
That's what
This
it
is
looks like.
the decapitating weevil, just to repeat what Andy was saying.
Well, and this too, I mean, even the seed heads here, the coneflower, I know a lot of people, for looks, will take them off. But I can tell you, out of sheer laziness, I've left them on my coneflower in my yard when they've gone to seed, and there are goldfinches over the, just going to town on them all day. So there's, they may look a little more unsightly than when they're in full bloom, but those seeds, even afterwards, are a great resource for wildlife. And I've never seen a goldfinch in my yard until this year.
Oh, really?
And last year was the first year I planted coneflower. So
there's more goldenrod. I think there's still elm leaf goldenrod. We missed the tall goldenrod, so this one kind of flowers out first. Elm leaf goldenrod, and then
is that probably is that it over there? But it's not in bloom yet.
no, that's more the tall ragweed.
Oh, okay.
So we just had a question from Janelle, who says she's never been here. How big is the nature reserve?
So the nature reserve is over 2,500 acres. There's about 20, what am I trying to say? Maybe 2,100 acres on the side you can explore, and then we have about 400 to 500 acres on the other side of the Missouri or Merrimack River that's used for our wetland mitigation program. So corporations can pay and buy wetland credits, which come to us, which helps us continue to develop this wetland cell on the other side of the nature reserve. So we have 2,500 acres. We have 17 miles worth of trail, about 3 miles of our main prairie loop or trail house loop road. So there's a lot to explore. The wildflower garden was about 5 acres with probably like a half a mile of trail. And then from here you can go out in so many different directions.
Yeah.
And again, you can spend the entire day here and probably not hit all the spots in the nature reserve. So I highly recommend, if you haven't come out to the reserve, at least come out once, check it out, but then come back each season, I would say. You know, come and see the nature reserve in the summer, in the fall, in the winter, in the spring. It looks so much different, but there's so many awesome plants and animals to explore, to discover, and to study. Or just come out for your leisure. A lot of people just come to the nature reserve to take time away from their busy lives, come out to the quietness of the reserve, listen to the birds, enjoy the beautiful colors. So there's just so many reasons to come out to the reserve for sure.
Well, and we mentioned it when we introduced you, but for those who have maybe tuned in late, Andy does do a video series similar to our own virtual tours, the Sights and Sounds series. So if people are maybe looking for suggestions on places to visit when they come here, they can check out that series and get a sense of the things that are in bloom or trails to check out.
Yep. So I host so currently on Thursday evenings, I host the Sights and Sounds Trail Series Dusk Hike. So we choose a different trail and we just kind of do exactly what Christina and Cassidy do. And I just walk out to the reserve. And then on Fridays, I try and post a short produced video of a certain trail. So I'll pick like the Wolf Run Trail, and I'll do about a 5-minute pre-recorded produced video that you can see what's blooming on that trail, and then come out in the weekend and try and look for that same stuff. So simply on the Facebook, just type into the search bar Sights and Sounds Trail Series, and you'll find the group page. Or if you go online to shawnature.org, you can find my face, and you can click on that, and that will take you directly to the Facebook page. So join that Facebook page, keep up to date with all things Sights and Sounds Trail Series and all things Shaw Nature Reserve for sure. Yeah, but I do also want to mention one more thing, that September is we're going to do a whole month of prairie celebration. So if you want to get involved, you can win prizes. I know most of you are members, but we have memberships to give away. We also have seeds to give away, and you can stay active in that month-long prairie celebration by following us over on shawnature.org or Shaw Nature Reserve on any of our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, so on and so forth. So check that out because it's a wonderful thing to celebrate this unique, diverse ecosystem that we have here at the Nature Reserve.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Andy. I think it's just about time to wrap this up. And thank you. I know. Yeah, well, just to say one more time, we've only covered 6 of thousands of acres today. Yeah, 6-ish. So if you enjoyed this video, there's lots more to explore out here.
For sure. Yep, and I hope that Cassidy and Christina, you can all come back maybe later in the fall and do this again, and we can see the colors changing in the forest. So everybody right now, take a nice look at the forest, how green it is, because hopefully when Cassidy and Christina come back, that'll be, you know, your oranges and your yellows and your burnt reds. It'll be beautiful.
Absolutely. Well, we'll just end on a nice shot of this prairie, and thanks everyone again for tuning in. We'll see you next week.